The story opens with Ethan Cole standing in the grand reception hall of the Calthier Royal Palace, trying very hard not to look as out of place as he feels. He's a junior trade liaison from Earth's diplomatic corps, essentially the person who carries folders and takes notes while senior officials conduct actual negotiations. He's never been to the Calthier homeworld before, never been in the presence of actual royalty, and is desperately trying to remember all 17 rules of proper court etiquette he was briefed on yesterday. The hall is magnificent, soaring architecture that seems to defy physics, bioluminescent decorations that pulse with gentle light, and hundreds of beings from across the Calthier Empire gathered for the formal reception welcoming Earth's delegation. Everyone is dressed in elaborate court attire that makes Ethan's carefully selected formal suit look painfully mundane. Then she enters, and the entire hall falls silent. Queen Sariel, the immortal sovereign of the Calthier Empire, who has ruled for over 4 centuries. She moves with the grace expected of her position, her long ears adorned with intricate ceremonial jewelry, her formal robes bearing patterns that signify her lineage and authority. Her face is composed in the perfect mask of royal dignity that Ethan has seen in every historical image, beautiful, distant, untouchable. Ethan watches from his position at the back of the Earth delegation as Queen Sariel moves through the formal reception. She greets high-ranking officials with precisely measured courtesy, accepts tributes with gracious nods, performs every aspect of her role with flawless perfection. She's everything the briefings described. The eternal queen, the symbol of Calthier unity, the ruler who has guided her people through centuries of change. But there's something in her eyes that the briefings didn't mention. A weariness, perhaps. A distance that goes beyond royal dignity into something that looks almost like loneliness. When she smiles at some dignitary's formal compliment, the smile doesn't quite reach those eyes. Ethan finds himself thinking that being immortal and worshipped must be its own kind of prison. One of the senior Earth diplomats leans over and whispers, "Magnificent, isn't she? 400 years old and still looks 30. The Calthier consider her a living embodiment of their civilization." Ethan, not meaning for anyone to hear, whispers back so quietly it's almost subvocal, "The queen is so beautiful, but she looks so alone, like she's performing rather than living." He doesn't realize 2 things. First, that Calthier hearing is considerably more acute than human hearing, especially when enhanced by the auditory amplification technology woven into ceremonial jewelry. Second, that Queen Sariel, despite being across the hall conducting formal greetings, has just heard every word he said with perfect clarity. Sariel's composure doesn't falter. 4 centuries of royal training means she could hear devastating news and maintain perfect calm. But internally, something shifts. In 400 years of rule, she's heard endless praise. She's been called magnificent, glorious, radiant, divine. She's been worshipped, feared, respected, and obeyed. But no one, literally no one, has ever described her as alone. No one has ever suggested that behind the queenly performance, there's a person who might be lonely. She continues her duties flawlessly, but part of her attention tracks the human who spoke those words. He's young, clearly junior in his delegation, and seems uncomfortable with the formal court setting. He's not performing for anyone's attention. He simply observed her, and in an unguarded moment, expressed genuine compassion rather than ritualistic flattery. That night, alone in her private chambers, Sariel reviews the security recordings of the reception, ostensibly to assess diplomatic protocols, but actually to replay the moment when the human whispered those words. She enhances the audio, watches his face. There's no calculation there, no attempt to manipulate or gain favor. Just honest observation and what appears to be sincere concern for her well-being. It's the most genuine reaction to her anyone has had in decades, possibly longer. Over the following days, as Earth's delegation conducts trade negotiations, Sariel finds herself paying attention to the junior liaison who made that observation. She doesn't approach him directly. That would be inappropriate and cause diplomatic complications. But she positions herself where she can observe him during public events, and she has access to security recordings that let her see how he behaves when he thinks no one important is watching. What she observes surprises her. Ethan Cole treats everyone the same way: palace servants, senior diplomats, guards, translators, with the same genuine courtesy and interest. He's not performing hierarchy or status. When a servant drops a tray of refreshments near him, he helps clean up rather than stepping back in distaste. When he's lost in the palace's complex corridors, he asks for directions with self-deprecating humor rather than imperious demand. He's authentic in a way that court life has taught Sariel to distrust, because usually authenticity is itself a performance. But Ethan seems to genuinely not know anyone important is watching, which makes his consistency even more remarkable. During a formal diplomatic dinner, Sariel engineers a situation where she'll be seated within earshot of the Earth delegation. The seating arrangements are complex enough that this doesn't seem deliberate. She watches Ethan navigate the elaborate meal with visible uncertainty about which utensils to use for which course, sees him quietly observe others and adapt rather than pretending expertise he doesn't have. At one point, another junior diplomat from a different species makes a quiet disparaging remark about Kael'thir court customs being needlessly complicated and designed to make outsiders feel inferior. Ethan's response, spoken quietly but within range of Sariel's enhanced hearing, surprises her. Maybe, or maybe when you've been a civilization for as long as they have, you develop complexity because you've had time to develop nuance. We're the newcomers here. Seems reasonable to meet them where they are rather than expecting them to simplify for our convenience. It's a small moment, a minor exchange, but it shows a perspective Sariel finds unusual. Someone who defaults to assuming good faith and considering other viewpoints rather than assuming malice or inconvenience. That night, Sariel does something she hasn't done in decades. She leaves the palace in disguise, using appearance-altering technology and non-royal attire to walk the city as an anonymous person rather than as queen. She's not sure why she feels compelled to do this now, after so long. Perhaps Ethan's observation that she looks alone made her realize how profound her isolation has become. She ends up in a public garden, a place she used to visit centuries ago before security concerns made such freedom impossible. She's sitting on a bench, watching the bioluminescent flowers, when she hears a familiar voice. "I thought that was you, but I wasn't sure if I should say anything. Felt like maybe you were here specifically not to be recognized." Sariel turns to find Ethan standing a respectful distance away, hands in pockets, looking uncertain. "How did you recognize me?" she asks, genuinely curious. She's using sophisticated disguise technology that should fool visual identification. "Your posture," Ethan says simply, "and the way you look at everything like you're seeing it for the first time in a long time. Plus, I saw you at the reception, watched you through all those formal events. You move differently than other people, more deliberately, like every gesture is considered." He pauses. "I can leave if you're here for privacy. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. The palace is pretty far from here, and I didn't know if you had security." Sariel should send him away. She should return to the palace immediately. She should maintain the absolute separation between royalty and everyone else. Instead, she gestures to the bench. "You may sit if you wish. And yes, I have security. They're excellent at being invisible." Ethan sits, maintaining respectful distance. They're quiet for a moment, then he says, "I'm probably breaking about 40 rules of protocol right now, aren't I?" "At minimum," Sariel confirms, but there's something almost like amusement in her voice. "I should have you arrested for addressing the Queen without proper formal preamble." "I can do the formal preamble if you want," Ethan offers. "I've been practicing. Your Eternal Majesty, Sovereign of the Kael'thir Empire, Light of the Endless Throne, Guardian of—" "Please stop," Sariel interrupts, and there's definitely amusement now. "That title was adopted 2 centuries ago, and I've always found it excessive." They sit in companionable silence, watching the gardens. Finally, Sariel asks, "At the reception, you said I looked alone. Why did you say that?" Ethan looks uncomfortable. "You heard that? I thought I was speaking too quietly for anyone to—" He stops, clearly realizing the situation. "Your hearing is better than I thought." "Considerably," Sariel confirms. "Answer the question." Ethan is quiet, clearly weighing his words. "You're going to take this the wrong way, but everyone at that reception treated you like a symbol, like a monument or a living flag. They spoke at you with formal respect, but no one spoke to you like you were a person." And you performed your role perfectly, but there were moments when I saw your face when you thought no one was watching closely, and you just looked tired and lonely. He meets her eyes. I know I have no business making observations about the Queen's emotional state. I'm nobody, but you asked, so I'm being honest. You're the first person in perhaps a century who has been honest with me about anything beyond state business, Sariel says quietly. Everyone else tells me what they think I want to hear, or what serves their political interests, or what maintains proper protocol. You simply told the truth as you saw it. Is that bad? Ethan asks. I'm genuinely asking. I don't know court culture well enough to know if honesty is offensive. It's unusual, Sariel says, and yes, I am lonely. I have been lonely for longer than you've been alive. I'm immortal, I'm worshipped, I'm obeyed without question, and I haven't had a genuine conversation with someone who saw me as a person rather than an institution in so long I'd forgotten what it felt like. She pauses, until you whispered that observation at the reception, and I realized that someone actually saw me rather than just the crown I wear. They talk for hours. Ethan asks questions about her life with genuine curiosity rather than political calculation. Sariel finds herself sharing frustrations she's never expressed. The isolation of immortality, the burden of being a symbol rather than a person, the loneliness of making decisions alone for centuries. Ethan shares his own experiences with isolation, being a junior functionary who's invisible to important people. And Sariel realizes that loneliness exists at every level of society, just in different forms. As dawn approaches, Sariel knows she needs to return to the palace. But before they part, she tells Ethan something she shouldn't. I will be in these gardens again tomorrow night. If you happen to be walking here, and if you happen to see me, perhaps we could continue this conversation. It's as close to a direct invitation as she can offer without creating complications. Over the following weeks, Ethan and Sariel develop a strange relationship that exists in the margins between public roles. They meet in the gardens, always technically by accident, always with her in disguise. They talk about philosophy, culture, the difference between living and merely existing. Sariel hasn't felt this seen, this genuinely known, in centuries. But she's also aware this can't continue indefinitely. Ethan's delegation will eventually return to Earth. She will remain queen forever, immortal and alone. The diplomatic negotiations conclude successfully, and Earth's delegation prepares to depart. Sariel knows she should let Ethan leave, should return to her isolated existence, should accept that their connection was a brief anomaly in her endless reign. Instead, she does something unprecedented. She summons Ethan to a formal private audience, properly done, with full protocol, completely public record. When he enters the audience chamber, clearly nervous about why the Queen has summoned him specifically, Sariel addresses him from her throne with full royal formality. Ethan Cole of Earth, you attended our reception several weeks ago, and during that event, you made an observation about our person. You believed your words were private. They were not. Ethan goes pale. Your Majesty, I apologize if I caused offense. You observed that we appeared lonely, Sariel continues, maintaining royal language and formal distance. That we seemed to be performing rather than living. That observation, whether you intended it or not, was heard and considered. She pauses, making a decision that will change everything. We have ruled for 4 centuries. We have been worshipped, feared, respected, and obeyed. But we have not been seen as a person in longer than we can accurately recall. You saw us. Not the crown, not the symbol, but the individual beneath. She stands, descending from her throne in a breach of formal protocol that makes her advisors visibly uncomfortable. We are lonely. We have been lonely for centuries, and we are tired of being a symbol rather than a person. She approaches Ethan directly. We are asking, not commanding, but asking, if you would consider remaining in our court. Not as a political appointment, but as someone who speaks honestly rather than politically. Someone who sees us rather than just the throne we sit upon. Ethan is clearly overwhelmed. Your Majesty, I'm not qualified for any position of significance. I'm a junior liaison who carries folders. We have countless qualified advisors and